So the Minnesota Timberwolves are now officially the worst team in the entire NBA for the 2020-21 season up to this point. However, even though the T-Wolves have the worst record in the entire league, what if I told you this season will end up going down as a positive one and a historically good one in Timberwolves franchise history? What's up guys, SCJ here, and if you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot, and if you're new to the channel and or enjoyed the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. So last night, the Minnesota Timberwolves put up a very tough fight against LeBron James and the LA Lakers. I guess I should really say they put up a good fight for 3 quarters actually. Every time the Lakers tried to pull away from the Timberwolves, Minnesota just kept pulling on that Lakers lead, and they even had the lead on the Lakers late in the third quarter. However, the Lakers hopped in front of the Timberwolves in the final 55 seconds of the third quarter, and LA held the lead for the final 12 minutes and 55 seconds of last night's game. They even got the lead up to 14 points at one point, but the final score ended up being the Lakers 112, Timberwolves 104. Even despite the team not winning, that game was a solid showing for the Timberwolves, and yes, I am aware of the fact that Anthony Davis will be out for a bit for the Lakers, and he did not play in last night's game, as the T-Wolves were also without not just one of their key players like the Lakers were, but multiple key players such as D'Angelo Russell, Jared Culver, and Juan Hernangomez, just to name a few. The team proved they can hang around with a top-tier team even when their best player, Karl-Anthony Towns, isn't dominating, as even though he shot 70%, he finished with 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in 32 minutes of play last night. The team got solid all-around scoring from multiple players and got a very good showing from 2020's first overall draft pick, Anthony Edwards. Edwards finished with 28 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks on 50% shooting from the field, as well as 50% shooting from beyond the arc. That's a very good night to say the least, especially from a rookie. Edwards is having a very good season, as you can see here, but he has only started in the team's last 11 games and wasn't even starting when both D'Angelo Russell and Karl Towns were first out, which is crazy to me considering he was the top pick of this past draft. Ever since he began to start games for the T-Wolves, he's been playing very well. In his 11 starts, Edwards is averaging 17.6 points, 4.9 rebounds, 3.4 assists, both 0.7 steals and blocks, and doing that on shooting percentages of 44, 35, and 77%. Those shooting numbers might not impress some people, but you have to remember 2 things. He wasn't looked at by scouts and drafted for his shooting, yet those are still solid numbers, and the guy has only played in 28 games, started in 11 games, and is only 19 years old as well. Clearly, he's still working and improving on his shot, and in my eyes, he has looked very good this season and has worked a bit on his shooting as well. So enough talk about Edwards, as maybe I'm biased since I am a fan of his, but now let's talk about why there's a good chance this season will end up being a positive one for the Timberwolves. The first thing is the team has been without their 2 top players as of right now, Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell. D'Lo has missed games due to things such as leg soreness, quad soreness, and now D'Lo will be out from 4 to 6 weeks due to getting arthroscopic surgery to remove loose bodies in his left knee. And with Towns, he dealt with a left wrist injury early on in the season. Then afterwards, many of you are probably aware of this, but if you're not, Karl-Anthony Towns had a battle with COVID, and those 2 things kept him out for 20 of the Timberwolves' 28 games so far this season. So this team really hasn't gotten a chance to see what their future might look like, and really what their players can do together this season, as they have had many players out, including, like I said, their 2 top players, and they never got to see Edwards start next to those players, Towns and D'Lo. So we can't really tell, and we really don't know just how good this team will be or can be when their 3 top players start together and how they'll look going forward. However, the team has gotten a chance to see how good some of their other players can be and who could be a key rotation player for them going forward, and they've gotten a really good look at players such as Malik Beasley and Naz Reid. I grew up in Jersey, so many of my closest friends actually knew Naz and played with or against him, so personally I knew he would be a very solid NBA player, and he looks like that right now as he's played very well for Minnesota. In terms of Beasley, he's proved he can possibly be a starter in the backcourt long term next to D'Lo, but he just got sentenced to serve time and 120 days in jail due to an arrest in September of this past year, so even though I'm assuming the T-Wolves will still hold on to him for next season, we still don't know. However, he has played good, and if he does remain a Timberwolf, that's only a positive for the team. Despite being the league's worst team, the Timberwolves are actually top 10 in some defensive stats, as they're 6th in blocks per game, 4th in total steals on the season, as well as 4th in steals per game. The T-Wolves also have the 8th best assist-to-turnover ratio in the NBA and the 7th most offensive rebounds of any team in the league currently. The team has some issues defensively, though, as they're allowing the 5th most points per game and 3rd most points in the paint this season. They haven't improved too much in those areas in the 4 games since Karl Towns has returned, but nevertheless there has been improvements, as you can see here. It shows, though, that this roster, of course, still has some work that needs to be done to it, and they have had some issues with players being out so often as well, like mentioned earlier, so this season doesn't really feel like a real indicator or assessment of how this roster can look or will look going forward, and with all these guys playing together. However, that brings me to what I want to talk about next, and that's the one part of the offseason where they can improve their roster, and that would have to be the NBA draft. If the Timberwolves land outside of the top 3 picks of the 2021 NBA draft, they will have to give up their first-round selection this year to the Warriors, but it's looking more and more likely that they will indeed land a top 3 pick and retain their pick. However, with how the draft odds currently go, where we've seen the Knicks get screwed out of either the first overall pick or one of the top 3 picks the last 2 years, despite how much they struggled, I won't be surprised if the Timberwolves fall out of the top 3 and have to give up their pick. Plus, I know many people probably think the NBA will rig it so they can give the Warriors yet another top player, and all of a sudden next year, they'll be back to their old ways of dominating both the Western Conference and the entire NBA. However, if the Timberwolves do end up landing a top 3 pick and retaining their 2021 draft pick, there will be a very good player that they'll be adding with one of those top 3 spots in the draft. I personally don't believe they'll have the first overall pick, as landing the top pick consecutive years in a row is a real rarity. However, if they do land the first overall pick, Cade Cunningham would be a very great player for them to pick up, even with the team already having D'Angelo Russell as one of their key players. As mentioned before, I'm from Jersey, so last year I attended the Metro Classic mainly to see Bronny James, but I also got the chance to see Cade Cunningham, and he immediately caught my eye. He's a big, strong, physical guard who can score in pretty much any way and any possible way that he wants, and having him in the backcourt with D'Lo would be very nice for their backcourt going forward. Then having Edwards and Towns starting next to them would make a very nice starting unit with many young players. The second-rated top prospect is USC center Evan Mobley. While the team already has Karl Towns, Mobley has the ability to stretch the floor and shoot from the outside, and he's a very lengthy player with his 7'5" wingspan, so he can be a very nice pickup as well for this Timberwolves team if the team retains their top draft pick and he's available on the board. Now, in terms of the third draft prospect, many people, fans, or writers can't seem to narrow it down to just a top 3, so many writers and scouts have flipped around the top 4 prospects many times. So hell, maybe even the 5th guy or someone outside of the top 5 right now can go top 3 in the 2021 draft. But staying on the current top 4, let's look at forward Jonathan Kuminga and guard Jalen Suggs. Kuminga is one of the many draft prospects who decided to skip college and go straight to the G League, so he currently plays for the G League Ignite. Kuminga has great athleticism, and he often uses that to put opposing players on posterizing jams, and he's putting up very good numbers on the year as well so far in the G League bubble, as he's averaging 18.3 points, 7 rebounds, 3.3 assists, and a solid player impact estimate rating of 11.7. In terms of Suggs, he is a very good player who plays at a very high pace, and with the fact that the Timberwolves currently have the 6th highest pace in the entire NBA this season, he might actually be a good fit next to D'Angelo Russell if he ends up in Minnesota. So if the Timberwolves retain their 2021 draft pick, they will have a very good opportunity to improve their team and their roster, and with the fact they average the 5th lowest points per game of any team this season, any player they pick up will for sure provide an instant help for this team. So while this season hasn't been an ideal one for the Timberwolves, and even when it looked like it would be getting better with the return of Karl Towns and their first overall draft pick starting games for them and looking great, they keep getting hit with more and more problems, such as Malik Beasley's sentencing and D'Angelo Russell's injury that will keep him out for at least a month. There's positives that can be taken and will be taken from the 2020 to 21 season for the Timberwolves, however, like the experience that some of their young players will get out of this year, and the fact they have a very good chance to retain their 2021 first-round draft pick and add a very nice addition to their young core, as they currently hold the worst record in the entire NBA. So while things might not look good for the T-Wolves, there's a very good chance the team ends up profiting or gaining things from their struggles during this 2020 to 21 NBA season. but I want to know what you guys think about this Minnesota Timberwolves team, their roster, or anything having to do with this team or franchise down below in the comment section. Like mentioned before though, if you like the video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot. And if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way you stay up to date with my newest content. Anyway though guys, I'm SCJ and I am out. Peace.